All right, let's get right into it. On February 28th, 2026, the world woke up to a war that had been brewing for years. But this wasn't just another regional flare-up. This was the day the map of power in the Middle East was fundamentally redrawn. Just think about this. In the span of only 12 hours, nearly 900 separate strikes hammered Iran. And let's be crystal clear, this was no warning shot. This wasn't some diplomatic signal. This was the opening bell of a full-scale war, a coordinated assault by the US and Israel aimed right at the heart of the Iranian regime. And in that first wave of attacks, something happened that almost nobody thought was possible. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, the man who ruled Iran with an absolute iron fist for 34 years, was killed. Just gone in the blink of an eye. But killing a leader doesn't always mean the war is over. Sometimes it's just the beginning. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, that's a world away. What does it have to do with me? Well, this wasn't just an attack on Iran. It was a direct hit on the entire global economic system. And those shockwaves, they're already hitting your wallet. Let's break down exactly why. As we speak, there are about 2,000 ships just stranded. No, that is not a typo. 2,000. We're talking massive vessels carrying everything from oil to electronics, basically all the stuff we depend on, and they're all trapped in the Strait of Hormuz, which has gone from being a superhighway of global trade to an active war zone. And this chart, wow, it just perfectly illustrates the problem, doesn't it? That one tiny little waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, is like the main artery for the world's oil. Nearly 20% of the entire global supply flows through there. So when you clamp that artery shut, the whole system starts to have a heart attack. And here's where it really hits home. The head of the IMF basically laid it out in plain English. That bottleneck in the Gulf translates directly to you paying more at the gas pump, to higher prices at the grocery store. It's a direct hit to your bank account. So yeah, this isn't just some regional squabble. It's an economic war, and we're all caught in the crossfire. So the big question is, how on earth did we get to this point? A war like this doesn't just happen overnight. This fire has been smoldering for a long time. To really get what happened on February 28th, you've got to rewind the clock and look at the last 3 years that set the stage. It really all kicked off back in October 2023 with that horrific Hamas attack on Israel. That one day lit a fuse that just started snaking its way across the entire region, leading to the war in Gaza. And for the next 2 years, the US and Israel began this methodical, systematic campaign to tear apart Iran's proxy network, piece by piece, which led right up to the massive assault we're seeing now. Now, this here is really the key to understanding Iran's whole strategy for decades, this axis of resistance. It was basically their insurance policy. It was a genius, if cynical, way to fight its enemies, to project power all over the Middle East without ever having to fire a shot from Iranian soil. It was like having a bunch of remote controls for causing chaos without ever getting your own hands dirty. And for a long, long time, it worked. But by the beginning of 2026, that whole insurance policy was in absolute tatters. Hezbollah was getting hammered, their other proxies were under constant fire, and, this is the crucial part, the regime was facing the biggest protests at home since its founding, all while its economy was in freefall. It was the perfect storm. The Islamic Republic was arguably weaker than it had ever been in its entire history. And with the regime on the ropes, its biggest rivals in the region could smell blood in the water. The Washington Post reported that both Saudi Arabia and Israel were leaning hard on the Trump administration, pushing for a strike. The window of opportunity was there, the allies pushed for it, and, well, the bombs fell. So this brings us to what's happening right now. And what you have to understand is that this isn't one war. It's really 2 wars being fought at the exact same time on completely different fronts. You've got a high-tech missile war on one side and a gritty, asymmetric economic war on the other. Okay, so here's the bottom line. The US and Israel are throwing everything they've got at this. We're talking stealth fighters, next-gen missiles, the most advanced drones on the planet. And Iran? They just can't compete with that head-to-head. So they're using their single most powerful weapon, their geography, their ability to literally choke the world's oil supply. And make no mistake, the fighting itself has been incredibly intense, and in some cases, truly history-making. An Iranian strike on Beit Shemesh killed 9 civilians, the single deadliest attack on Israeli soil ever. And in a chilling world first, an Israeli F-35 actually shot down a crewed Iranian fighter jet in an air-to-air dogfight. We are in a brand new, much scarier era of warfare. And all the while, Iran's economic war, it's landing some serious blows around the world. I mean, Bangladesh had to close its universities because they couldn't afford the energy. Pakistan and the Philippines are on 4-day work weeks just to save fuel. So you see the strategy? Iran might be taking the punches on the military front, but it's proving it can still make the rest of the world feel the pain. So, after all of this, the strikes, the blockades, the deaths, it all leads us to the one question that really matters. What happens now? Where do we go from here? Because this war is far from over, and honestly, the future of the entire region is just hanging by a thread. And Iran's response to all this? It has been nothing short of pure defiance. They immediately appointed Khamenei's son as the new supreme leader to show continuity. They've announced they're mobilizing 1 million new fighters, and they've taken this terrifying step of declaring American and Israeli universities in the region as legitimate targets. This is a regime that's digging in its heels for a long, ugly war. Which brings us to the hard truth of this whole situation. After the shock and awe, after the death of the supreme leader, after all the military damage, the main objective hasn't been achieved. The regime that its enemies wanted to see crumble to the ground is beaten and bruised for sure, but it is still standing. So we're left with this really unsettling question, aren't we? If the whole point of this war was to make the Middle East safer, to get rid of the nuclear threat once and for all, is it actually working? Or is every bomb that drops, every ship that's stopped, just building the foundation for something even worse, something far more dangerous down the road? And right now, there's just no easy answer to that.